Hi everyone and welcome to the Gen Y Investor. My name is Will and today is just going to be a little bit of an introductory video into what my channel is going to be about. So if you think you'll enjoy some of this content or get something from it, it'd be greatly appreciated if you could give me a like and subscribe to the channel. So a little bit of background information. I grew up and live in South Australia, so a lot of my investing is in the ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange. And yes, my property is also obviously in Australia. Not to say that I don't trade in the US and some overseas markets like Asia, but the majority of my portfolio is in the ASX. So I studied psychology and finished that about 7 years ago, and I've been working full-time since. My channel is going to have a heavy focus on the psychology of investing and trading, just because I think that's an element that gets a little bit forgotten amongst all the jargon and the numbers of the trading game. And at the end of the day, it's human beings making the buys and the sells, and fear and biases affect a lot of their choices. So I will be talking about that quite a bit. Not to say that I won't also discuss some of the fundamentals and the analytical side of things. I do enjoy looking at revenues and earnings and whatnot, so I will be touching on that. But yeah, like I said, today's just going to be a little bit of introduction. I'm just going to sort of talk about the pros and cons of my three key areas of investment, which is the property, stock exchange, and cryptocurrencies, which has just recently started looking at that a little bit. And then we'll also take a look at my portfolio. I won't be talking about exact financials. I feel like that's a little bit look at me, and I don't think investing should be something that you're comparing other people to. It should be your own journey. But yeah, I will be just talking about what I'm invested in and what I'm also potentially looking to look at investing in the future. So without further ado, let's head over to the desktop. Okay, here we are. Property, shares or crypto, the million-dollar question. I guess the short answer is a bit of everything, which is going to be a very common theme in my channel. I think diversity is a key when considering what to invest in. So yeah, my property, it's been good so far, but it can be a little bit of a mess sometimes, having to deal with tenants, whether they're going to pay or not, dealing with property managers, having to maintain the place. There's a lot of things that people don't really consider when buying a property. And when I was younger, I wanted all these houses and just to solely focus on the property market. But as I've got older, I just feel like, shares and crypto are probably two things that should be added to my portfolio. Not to say that property isn't a very good investment. It's very stable. It's very good long term, especially if you're in South Australia. It's a really stable market. But yeah, a little bit more volatile overseas and in Melbourne and Sydney. But yeah, can be a very good investment. I just feel like it's a little bit too much of a headache to manage at times, which leads me into shares, which I've got into over the past year or so. I've had a very good time with that. I guess the main thing you've got to consider with that is whether you can play the long game and ride out some of these, ups and downs that the market always dishes at you. And yeah, sometimes the gains aren't as much as what you expect. It's just a long game, a very long game, slow burner, one might say. And then crypto, that's the final thing. I've been looking into crypto probably over the past month or two. Extremely volatile. And I actually do think, crypto is going to be some cryptocurrency is going to be the world currency in the future, and I think there's a huge space for it. But it's almost about like which one, which one to invest in. So yeah, a little bit too volatile for me at the moment. I'm just wetting my feet in crypto. I'm not going full bore at that yet. Yeah, so I think a little bit of everything. Like I said, that's probably the best way to go about it. But let's have a look at my current portfolio. We'll talk about that a little bit. Alright, so I'm invested in Skyworks. That's a company in the US. It's actually done very well for me so far. It makes chips for iPhones and things like that. It's a technology company. It reported extremely strong earnings, like blew the earnings out of the sky, the expected earnings, and then I invested just before the earnings came out, and yeah, it did well. It didn't jump as much as I thought it would, but it's done well for me. I think I bought in at about 170, so it's definitely going up. Mara, this is one I just invested in as of this morning actually. My good friend Ethan, who will be on the channel next, very smart man, he suggested this to me. This is a Bitcoin mining, well not Bitcoin, sorry, just a crypto mining company. Like I said, I don't sort of like betting on, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum, that sort of stuff. I don't know which one will come out on top. I want to get on the whole market basically, but similar to an ETF. So I think Mara is probably a good investment. It's, they don't mind just Bitcoin. They'll mine whatever. So I can see that going up. Bought that today. It went up 3.2% for me, which is handy. You always want to see a gain short term. Bitcoin, got a tiny bit in Bitcoin. It's such a high price. It's crazy. But, I'd be 90% sure that Bitcoin's going to be the world's main currency going forward, whether that's 10 years or 20 years away. But just that little bit of risk in it just feels a bit too much like gambling for me. Baby Bunting, another one Ethan sort of told me to keep an eye on. I do get we exchange quite a few words, Ethan and I, about shares. Haven't invested in Baby Bunting just yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it. Block, this is one of my big boys. This is a ETF which is invested in all the different like crypto spaces. So let's have a look at it. In all the BlockFi space. So again, not invested like just in Bitcoin or Ethereum, but different companies that might mine or different companies that might be on the blockchain, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's been doing quite well for me. Apple's one that I'm also in a little bit on. That was just before the earnings. And this is another one that's a bit funny. It again comes back to the psychology of trading because, Apple. I knew Apple would blow its revenue out of the expected earnings, out of the sky, which it did. And then over the next week, it pretty much just stayed stable. No one bought up a ridiculous amount or anything, which kind of shocked me a little bit. Again, speaks volumes of how unpredictable the market can be, though. You can look at all the numbers and sometimes it just doesn't make sense why things are staying the same or not going up, not going down. That's what I've found anyway. Ethereum, again, got a little bit, just more so to monitor it. It's got the benefit of contracts in the trades, which Bitcoin doesn't have. So I think it does have one little advantage over it. It's the world's second highest price, I guess you'd say, rather than popular cryptocurrency, so it's definitely worth looking at. Doge, the old meme coin, that's a meme from cryptocurrency, but it's actually absolutely killed it for me. I bought in at 0.31 and it's got up to 0.95 the other day. Again, a bit more of a play around money. I didn't go too hard on that one, but it's returning so far. I don't think it'll do a lot more, but if it does, hooray! It's a pretty low price. BMT, got this off another bloke whose channel I watch, and then I did a little bit more research into it. I've been wanting to get into the electric vehicle space for a long time, because obviously that's the way forward. We've talked about, UK going fully electric by 2030. Every country's trying to lower their emissions and get into the EV space. I mean, just look at Tesla. So bit of a aggressive one here, which is a bit unlike me, but I'm hoping it can go up. It's pretty much stayed the same for me since I bought it maybe a month or two ago. But that was one that I really looked into. Like, they sold 7,000 or 8,000 scooters. They sell scooters to Chinese customers, and they killed it earnings wise. And I got in just before all that, but it's just sort of stayed stable. So we'll see how that one goes. I don't have too much in that one. Google's listened to a podcast the other day that Google's the ultimate ETF, but without actually being an ETF, because it's basically, everyone's got stakes in it. It controls a lot. Yeah, only got a little bit in that. It's just such a high price. I would have loved to, buy in a bit earlier. It's just like, look at this graph over the last 6 months, even a year. Let's go 1 year or 5 years. It's just like crazy spikes. I think I got in at about 1750 here. So it's made some good money. Didn't put nearly enough in, I don't think. It's a very, very good investment. Westgold, I'm not in Westgold. I was looking at that pretty heavily, but gold sort of dropped off a bit lately. So I avoided that one. And it hasn't done much, so I'm sort of dodged a bullet on that one. ASIA, not in this one. One of my friends, Michael Hollis, told me about this stock. And it's actually been going extremely well for an ETF. So when did it start? Back in 18, and back in 2 years it's gone from 5% to say $15. That's that's a 200% increase on an ETF, which is pretty good. I should probably look at that one soon, I think. I should definitely look at that one soon. QAL, I was deciding between QAL or QLTY, and I ended up going with QLTY. Both ETFs, but I went with QLTY because it's this QAL one is very similar to an NDQ that I went pretty hard on. They're just invested in all the regular stuff like Facebook, Google, Apple, Tesla, blah blah blah. Whereas QLTY, that gets like this quality index. I think they compare like PE ratio and earnings per share and whatnot, and revenue. They put all these things together and it gives them a quality number, and then the top 50 shares in the world, or the top 50 shares on their index, get 2% each on this ETF. This one been a real slow burner for me. I think it's very stable. It's probably only going to get me, I think it's about 1 or 2% up at the moment. It's probably going to get me about 5 or 6% a year, I'd say. Let's have a look. 5 years. Yeah, so it's 15 up to 21. So that's about 25% over 3 years. Yeah, that's done pretty well. So I don't know, maybe a little bit better. It's been very slow for me so far. I think I've only made not a lot from it, but that's fine. We're in it for the long game. And then we move on to my big boys, ESPO.AX. That's by far my biggest investment. Sorry. Invested in the esports industry. It's an ETF, but not just esports. It's also in other gaming stocks like Blizzard, Ubisoft, EA Games, developers like that. And it's also got some shares in like Nvidia and AMD, which are chip makers in the computing space. So yeah, I think that'll rocket over the next 10 to 15 years. I work with children. Every kid that I go out and see loves their video games, smashes out their video games as well as YouTube. So I think that's gonna carry on in the next 10 to 15 years. So that's something that I'm very focused on. NDQ, another safe investment. I don't know if we can see exactly what NDQ's in on Yahoo Finance. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So like I said, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Facebook, Google, Nvidia, all the stuff you'd expect it to be invested in. And do we have anything else on here? I don't think so. I think that's probably about it. I'm not in Coles, and that's Ubisoft. That was one of the first things I added. What else? I've also got some stocks in this Spaceship Voyager. It's called. It's another app that just you basically invest money in. But I'll probably make another full video on that. It's got $0 fees. There's a lot I could talk about, but I won't talk about that now. That's just another thing I'm invested in. And then I've also been playing around with my super quite a bit. But again, that's probably another video that I'll need to make. So I think we'll probably leave it here. Thank you very much if you've continued watching. Let me know in the comments, anything you might agree or disagree with. I definitely encourage any conversation and chat. I'll try and reply to everyone, and I'll see you all for the next video. Cheers.